The stars twinkled silently in the dark void of space as humanity prepared to change the course of its destiny forever. In the heart of Seoul, where ancient traditions met cutting-edge science, a discovery was about to reshape mankind's future among the stars. Dr. Han Do-won stared at his computer screen, his eyes wide with disbelief. The numbers didn't lie. They never did. His hands trembled as he rechecked the calculations for the 100th time. The simulation results remained the same, showing something that should have been impossible: stable quantum locking at a massive scale. This can't be right, he whispered to himself, running his fingers through his graying hair. But deep down, he knew it was. 20 years of research had led to this moment. The breakthrough wasn't just theoretical. It was practical, achievable, and could be scaled up to protect entire ships. The next morning, the research facility buzzed with excitement. Teams of scientists from around the world gathered in the main laboratory as Dr. Han prepared to demonstrate his discovery. The test chamber held a small metal cube, barely the size of a coffee mug. As Dr. Han activated the quantum field generators, the cube began to glow with a soft blue light. "Watch closely," he told his colleagues. A robotic arm fired a high-powered laser at the cube. Instead of melting or even warming, the cube remained perfectly unchanged. The beam simply disappeared where it touched the quantum field, as if it had never existed. Word spread quickly through the scientific community. Within months, the United Earth government had allocated massive resources to Project Guardian. They converted an entire shipyard outside Seoul into a dedicated research facility, where engineers and scientists worked around the clock to scale up Dr. Han's discovery. The project drew the finest minds from every corner of Earth. They faced countless challenges: power requirements that seemed impossible to meet, field stability issues that threatened to tear their prototypes apart, and computational problems that pushed the limits of their most advanced quantum computers. But one by one, they overcame each obstacle. Captain Lee Soo-jin watched the construction of humanity's first quantum-locked battleship from the observation deck of the orbital station. The massive vessel took shape piece by piece, its hull gleaming under the construction lights. She had earned this command through years of dedicated service, but even she couldn't quite believe what she was seeing. The UEA's Invictus was unlike any ship ever built. Its quantum-locked hull made it virtually indestructible, but the technology required careful handling. One small mistake in the field calculations could trap the crew in an unchangeable state along with the ship. The engineers had to design special systems just to maintain normal operations inside while the quantum lock protected the exterior. The day of the first test arrived with little fanfare. Captain Lee stood on the bridge, her crew at their stations, all of them feeling the weight of history on their shoulders. The Invictus moved smoothly out of the shipyard, its engines purring with barely contained power. "All stations, report readiness for quantum lock engagement," Captain Lee ordered, her voice steady despite her racing heart. One by one, the stations reported in. Engineering confirmed power levels were optimal. The quantum field generators hummed to life, their energy spreading across the hull like ripples on a pond. The ship's sensors showed the field stabilizing, encompassing every inch of the massive vessel. "Target drones are in position, Captain," the weapons officer reported. "They're armed with the latest plasma cannons and particle beams. If anything can penetrate our defenses, these will." Captain Lee nodded, her expression determined. "Begin the test sequence." The drones attacked without warning. Beams of pure energy lashed out at the Invictus, bright enough to temporarily blind the external cameras. But where they struck the quantum-locked hull, they simply ceased to exist. No damage, no heat, not even a slight vibration reached the inside of the ship. The bridge crew watched in stunned silence as weapon after weapon proved useless against their vessel. Nuclear-tipped missiles exploded harmlessly against the quantum field. Railgun rounds moving at a significant fraction of light speed simply stopped dead on impact. "It's beautiful," Dr. Han whispered from his station near the back of the bridge. The field is performing better than we ever imagined. Captain Lee turned to face her crew, seeing the same mix of awe and pride on every face. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said, "we just changed the rules of space warfare forever. Humanity now has a shield that nothing can break." As the test concluded and the Invictus returned to dock, none of them could know that their achievement had already been noticed. Far beyond the solar system, alien sensors had detected the unusual energy signatures of their tests. Humanity's demonstration of quantum locking technology had caught the attention of powers that had ruled the stars for millennia. The true test of the Invictus and its crew would come sooner than anyone expected. The stars twinkled silently in the dark void of space as humanity prepared to change the course of its destiny forever. In the heart of Seoul, where ancient traditions met cutting-edge science, a discovery was about to reshape mankind's future among the stars. Dr. Han Dedawon stared at his computer screen, his eyes wide with disbelief. The numbers didn't lie. They never did. His hands trembled as he rechecked the calculations for the 100th time. The simulation results remained the same, showing something that should have been impossible: stable quantum locking at a massive scale. "This can't be right," he whispered to himself, running his fingers through his graying hair. But deep down, he knew it was. 20 years of research had led to this moment. The breakthrough wasn't just theoretical, it was practical, achievable, and could be scaled up to protect entire ships. The next morning, the research facility buzzed with excitement. Teams of scientists from around the world gathered in the main laboratory as Dr. Han prepared to demonstrate his discovery. The test chamber held a small metal cube, barely the size of a coffee mug. As Dr. Han activated the quantum field generators, the cube began to glow with a soft blue light. "Watch closely," he told his colleagues. A robotic arm fired a high-powered laser at the cube. Instead of melting or even warming, the cube remained perfectly unchanged. The beam simply disappeared where it touched the quantum field, as if it had never existed. Word spread quickly through the scientific community. Within months, the United Earth government had allocated massive resources to Project Guardian. They converted an entire shipyard outside Seoul into a dedicated research facility, where engineers and scientists worked around the clock to scale up Dr. Han's discovery. The project drew the finest minds from every corner of Earth. They faced countless challenges: power requirements that seemed impossible to meet, field stability issues that threatened to tear their prototypes apart, and computational problems that pushed the limits of their most advanced quantum computers. But one by one, they overcame each obstacle. Captain Lee Soo-jin watched the construction of humanity's first quantum-locked battleship from the observation deck of the orbital station. The massive vessel took shape piece by piece, its hull gleaming under the construction lights. She had earned this command through years of dedicated service, but even she couldn't quite believe what she was seeing. The UEA's Invictus was unlike any ship ever built. Its quantum-locked hull made it virtually indestructible, but the technology required careful handling. One small mistake in the field calculations could trap the crew in an unchangeable state along with the ship. The engineers had to design special systems just to maintain normal operations inside while the quantum lock protected the exterior. The day of the first test arrived with little fanfare. Captain Lee stood on the bridge, her crew at their stations, all of them feeling the weight of history on their shoulders. The Invictus moved smoothly out of the shipyard, its engines purring with barely contained power. "All stations, report readiness for quantum lock engagement," Captain Lee ordered, her voice steady despite her racing heart. One by one, the stations reported in. Engineering confirmed power levels were optimal. The quantum field generators hummed to life, their energy spreading across the hull like ripples on a pond. The ship's sensors showed the field stabilizing, encompassing every inch of the massive vessel. "Target drones are in position, Captain," the weapons officer reported. "They're armed with the latest plasma cannons and particle beams. If anything can penetrate our defenses, these will." Captain Lee nodded, her expression determined. "Begin the test sequence." The drones attacked without warning. Beams of pure energy lashed out at the Invictus, bright enough to temporarily blind the external cameras. But where they struck the quantum-locked hull, they simply ceased to exist. No damage, no heat, not even a slight vibration reached the inside of the ship. The bridge crew watched in stunned silence as weapon after weapon proved useless against their vessel. Nuclear-tipped missiles exploded harmlessly against the quantum field. Railgun rounds moving at a significant fraction of light speed simply stopped dead on impact. "It's beautiful," Dr. Han whispered from his station near the back of the bridge. "The field is performing better than we ever imagined." Captain Lee turned to face her crew, seeing the same mix of awe and pride on every face. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said, "we just changed the rules of space warfare forever. Humanity now has a shield that nothing can break." As the test concluded and the Invictus returned to dock, none of them could know that their achievement had already been noticed. Far beyond the solar system, alien sensors had detected the unusual energy signatures of their tests. Humanity's demonstration of quantum locking technology had caught the attention of powers that had ruled the stars for millennia. The true test of the Invictus and its crew would come sooner than anyone expected. The morning started like any other at Earth's Deep Space Monitoring Station. First Officer Kim Tae-ho sipped his coffee while watching the steady stream of data from the arrays pointed toward Proxima Centauri. Years of monitoring had taught him to recognize normal patterns in the cosmic background noise. That's why the unusual spike caught his attention immediately. "Sir, you need to see this," he called to his supervisor, his fingers flying over the controls to enhance the signal. The energy readings were like nothing he had ever seen before. Massive power signatures moving in formation, approaching at speeds that shouldn't have been possible. Within hours, every major observatory on Earth confirmed the readings. A fleet of unknown vessels was heading straight for Earth, and they were moving fast. The United Earth Council convened an emergency session as military forces worldwide went on high alert. The Invictus, docked at the lunar base for routine maintenance, received orders to prepare for immediate deployment. Captain Lee Soo-jin supervised the preparations personally, knowing that whatever was coming, her ship might be humanity's best defense. "All personnel, battle stations," she ordered, her voice calm but firm. "This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill." The alien fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel just beyond Mars' orbit. Their ships were massive, dark shapes that seemed to absorb the light of the sun. The largest vessel alone was bigger than anything humanity had ever built, its hull covered in weapons that made Earth's most powerful arsenals look like toys. Then came the message, broadcast simultaneously on all frequencies in perfect English. "We are the Rukar Empire. Your civilization has been marked for absorption. Submit or be eradicated. You have one planetary rotation to comply." The message was accompanied by a holographic projection that appeared in the United Earth Council chamber. Ambassador Krell, as he called himself, stood 9 feet tall, his scaled skin shimmering with an iridescent sheen. His 4 eyes blinked independently as he surveyed the human leaders with obvious disdain. "Your species has attracted our attention with your recent technological advancement," Krell announced. "The Rukar Empire does not permit potential rivals to develop unchecked. 12 civilizations before you made the wise choice to submit. Those who resisted no longer exist." The council members sat in stunned silence, but Council President Martinez stood firm. "Humanity will not surrender its sovereignty," she declared. "We are prepared to defend ourselves." Krell's laugh was like grinding metal. "Defend yourselves? With what? Your primitive weapons? Your single quantum-locked vessel? Yes, we know about your new toy. It is impressive for such a young species, but it is nothing compared to the might of the Empire." As if to demonstrate his point, one of the Rukar ships fired a single shot at Phobos, Mars' largest moon. The entire moon exploded into fragments, scattering across space like cosmic dust. Captain Lee watched the destruction from the Invictus bridge, her jaws set in determination. The ship's quantum lock hummed steadily around them. their only defense against such overwhelming power. Orders have arrived from command, Captain, her communications officer reported. We are to take up defensive position between the Rukar fleet and Earth. One ship against their entire fleet, First Officer Kim said quietly. They have enough firepower to destroy our whole solar system. Captain Lee stood from her command chair, addressing her crew. The Rukar think they know what our ship can do. They think they can calculate the odds, but they don't understand humanity. We've faced impossible odds before. We've survived ice ages, plagues, world wars, and our own worst impulses. We're still here because we never give up. She turned to look at the tactical display, where the Rukar ships loomed like dark predators. They want us to submit because they're afraid. They've seen what we can achieve in just a few centuries of technological development. They've seen our potential, and that terrifies them. The crew straightened in their seats, inspired by their captain's words. Engineers checked and rechecked the quantum lock systems. Weapons officers calculated firing solutions, even against targets that seemed invulnerable. Every person aboard knew they might be all that stood between humanity and extinction. Plot an intercept course, Captain Lee ordered. Let's show the Rukar Empire why you should never underestimate humans. The Invictus moved out from lunar orbit, its quantum-locked hull gleaming in the sunlight. A single ship against an armada, carrying humanity's hopes and determination with it. As they approached the Rukar fleet, Captain Lee sent a simple message back. Humanity rejects your terms. We stand ready to defend our home. Ambassador Krell's response was immediate and predictable. Then you have chosen extinction. The Rukar Empire will teach humanity its final lesson. The massive alien fleet began to move, their weapons charging with enough power to vaporize planets. But the Invictus held its course, humanity's shield preparing to face its greatest test. The first battle between Earth and the Rukar Empire was about to begin, and the fate of humanity hung in the balance. The red planet Mars hung silently in space, an unwitting witness to humanity's first interstellar battle. 30 Rukar warships surrounded the lone human vessel, their weapons primed and hungry for destruction. The UEA's Invictus stood its ground, its quantum-locked hull ready to face whatever the aliens could throw at them. Lieutenant Park Jae-yun's fingers hovered over the weapons console, her heart beating steadily despite the enormous alien ships filling their view screens. Years of training had prepared her for combat, but nothing could have truly prepared anyone for this moment. Enemy vessels charging weapons, she reported, her voice clear and professional. Multiple targeting locks detected. Captain Lee stood at the center of the bridge, her posture relaxed but alert. Hold position, she ordered. Let them make the first move. The Rukar didn't keep them waiting long. The alien fleet's first salvo lit up space like artificial lightning. Plasma bolts, each powerful enough to vaporize a small city, streaked toward the Invictus. Behind them came salvos of kinetic rounds accelerated to near-light speed, followed by the Rukar's dreaded particle beams. Impact in 3, 2, 1. Lieutenant Park counted down. The crew braced for impact, but there was nothing to feel. Where the alien weapons met the quantum field, they simply ceased to exist. No explosion, no shockwave, not even a slight tremor through the ship's hull. The quantum lock held perfectly, treating the devastating alien weapons as if they were no more threatening than sunlight. All systems nominal, reported Chief Engineer Ba from his station. Quantum field is stable. No damage detected. The Rukar ships paused their attack, clearly stunned by the complete failure of their weapons. Captain Lee allowed herself a small smile. Send them a message, she ordered. Text only. Would you like to try again? The aliens responded with an even heavier barrage. They fired everything they had. Antimatter torpedoes, graviton beams, weapons that the human crew didn't even have names for. The space around the Invictus became a maelstrom of deadly energy and destructive force. Yet the quantum-locked ship remained untouched. The laws of physics themselves seemed to bow before Dr. Hand's invention, refusing to allow any change to the ship's state. Even the vacuum of space around them was affected, creating strange visual distortions as energy weapons simply vanished at the quantum boundary. "They're trying to scan us," reported the sensor officer. "But the quantum field is blocking their attempts. They can't get any readings on our ship at all." This seemed to frustrate the Rukar even more. Their attacks became increasingly desperate, less coordinated. Ships began firing from random angles, trying to find some weakness in the quantum lock. Captain Lee watched their efforts with clinical interest. "Status of our weapon systems?" she asked. "Ready and tracking targets," Lieutenant Park responded. "But Captain, our weapons will have to pass through our own quantum field to fire. We're not sure what will happen." This was the moment of truth. The simulations had suggested their weapons would work, but no one had tested it in actual combat. Captain Lee made her decision. "Target the nearest vessel. Single railgun round, minimum power. Let's test our theory." Lieutenant Park input the commands, and the ship's main railgun fired. The round passed through their quantum field perfectly, transitioning from their protected space to normal space without losing any velocity. It struck the targeted Rukar ship shields, causing them to flare brightly. The effect on the alien fleet was immediate. Ships began to pull back, creating distance between themselves and the Invictus. Their weapon fire became sporadic, more like prodding attacks than serious attempts to destroy the human vessel. "They're transmitting to each other," the communications officer announced. "A lot of signals. I think they're panicking." The truth was dawning on the Rukar commanders. They faced a ship they couldn't damage, couldn't scan, and couldn't predict. Their weapons were useless, while the Invictus could fire at will through its own defenses. "Send another message," Captain Lee ordered. "Tell them, the Rukar Empire has demonstrated its strength. Now witness ours." She nodded to Lieutenant Park, who had already anticipated the order. The Invictus main guns opened up, sending precisely targeted rounds through gaps in the alien formation. They weren't trying to destroy the Rukar ships, just demonstrating that they could hit them at will. The alien fleet's formation broke completely. Ships began jumping to faster-than-light travel, retreating in disarray. Within minutes, only the Rukar command ship remained, holding position at the maximum range of its weapons. A transmission came through, audio only. The Rukar commander's voice trembled slightly as he spoke. This is impossible. What are you?" Captain Lee's response was calm and measured. "We are humanity. Remember that when you report to your leaders. Remember also that we chose not to destroy your ships when we could have. The next time we meet, that choice may be different." The last Rukar ship disappeared into FTL, leaving the Invictus alone in Mars orbit. The bridge crew finally allowed themselves to relax, the tension of battle draining away. "Well done, everyone," Captain Lee said, looking around at her crew with pride. "Today we proved that humanity can stand against any threat. But this was only the first battle. The Rukar won't give up easily. They'll be back, and next time they'll be better prepared." The crew nodded in understanding. They had won this encounter, but the war was just beginning. As the Invictus turned back toward Earth, they knew they had changed the galaxy forever. Humanity had stood its ground against a superior force and emerged victorious. The legend of the quantum-locked battleship had begun. The news came 3 days after their first victory. Long-range sensors detected thousands of ships emerging from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system. This wasn't just another fleet. It was the full might of the Rukar Empire, led by their most feared commander. Engineer Choi Youngmai was running routine diagnostics on the quantum lock systems when she first noticed something strange. The space-time readings around the ship weren't making sense. Where the quantum field met normal space, reality itself seemed to hiccup, creating ripples in the fabric of space-time. "This can't be right," she muttered, double-checking her instruments. But each test showed the same result. The quantum lock wasn't just affecting the ship, it was affecting space itself. She grabbed her tablet and ran to the bridge, not even bothering to ask for permission to enter. "Captain Lee, you need to see this immediately." Captain Lee turned from the tactical display, showing the approaching Rukar Armada. The young engineer's face was flushed with excitement and worry. "What have you found?" "The quantum lock. It's doing something to space-time around us. Look at these readings." She held out her tablet, showing complex graphs and data streams. "Every time we engage the field, it creates distortions in the local space-time fabric. They're small now, but they're growing." Dr. Yoon Hyunwoo, who had been quietly working at his station, joined them. The ship's chief scientist studied the data with growing concern. "This could explain why our power consumption has been increasing. The field isn't just fighting against weapons, it's fighting against reality itself." On the main screen, the Rukar fleet continued its advance. At their head was a massive dreadnought, twice the size of any ship they'd faced before. Its hull bristled with weapons, some of them clearly designed and built after their first encounter with the Invictus. "High Commander Rix demands our immediate surrender," the communications officer reported. He says he's brought enough firepower to crack this solar system in half." Captain Lee studied the tactical display thoughtfully. "Dr. Yoon, what are the implications of these space-time distortions?" The scientist ran his fingers through his gray hair, a habit when he was thinking deeply. "Unknown, Captain. We're in uncharted territory here. The quantum lock was never tested at this scale or for this duration. We could be looking at anything from minor gravitational anomalies to tears in the fabric of space-time itself." Engineer Choi spoke up again, her voice steady despite her youth. "There's something else, Captain. The power requirements for maintaining the field are increasing exponentially. If this continues, we might not be able to maintain the lock indefinitely." The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. The Invictus wasn't invincible after all. It was racing against time itself. "How long?" Captain Lee asked quietly. "At current rates, maybe 2 weeks before we exceed our power generation capacity. Less if we have to maintain maximum field strength under heavy attack." The tactical officer's voice cut through their discussion. "Rukar fleet is moving into attack formation. They're spreading out to surround us completely. Energy readings suggest they've developed some new weapon types." Captain Lee straightened in her chair. "Dr. Yoon, work with Engineer Choi. Find a way to stabilize these space-time distortions. In the meantime, we have a battle to win." The Rukar dreadnought's massive form filled their view screen. High Commander Rix's voice boomed through their speakers, confident and cruel. "The time for games is over, humans. Your quantum trick impressed us once. Now witness the true power of the Rukar Empire." The dreadnought's main weapon began to charge, drawing so much power that it created visible distortions in space. Behind it, thousands of ships moved into firing positions, their combined firepower enough to destroy entire star systems. On the Invictus, Engineer Choi worked frantically at her station, trying to manage the quantum field's power consumption. Dr. Yoon analyzed the space-time distortions, searching for any pattern that might help them. The rest of the crew prepared for what might be their final battle. Captain Lee's voice remained calm as she gave her orders. "All hands to battle stations. Quantum field at maximum strength. Whatever happens next, remember, we're not just fighting for Earth anymore. We're fighting for the right of every species to live free from tyranny." As the Rukar fleet prepared to fire, strange lights danced around the Invictus, where the quantum field intersected with the growing space-time distortions. They were about to learn whether humanity's greatest technological achievement would be their salvation or their doom. The fate of Earth hung in the balance, but so did something else, the very fabric of space-time itself. The true test of the quantum-locked battleship was about to begin, and no one, human or alien, could predict what would happen next. Dr. Yoon looked up from his instruments, his face grave. "Captain, whatever happens in the next few minutes, I believe we're about to make scientific history. I just hope we survive to record it." Captain Lee nodded, her eyes fixed on the approaching fleet. "So do I, Doctor." So do I. Space lit up with an unholy light as the Rooker's planet killer weapon took aim at Mars. The red planet hung defenseless in the void, about to become a demonstration of alien power. On the bridge of the Invictus, every crew member watched in horror as the massive energy beam lanced out from High Commander Rix's dreadnought. Communications Officer Song Minna's hands flew across her console as she intercepted and decoded the Rukar transmissions. Her eyes widened as she translated their internal communications. "Captain, you need to hear this," she called out. "They're terrified of us. The commanders are arguing about whether they should retreat. They think we're something beyond their understanding." Before Captain Lee could respond, the planet killer beam struck Mars. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the planet's surface began to crack, lines of molten rock spreading across its face like burning spider webs. Within minutes, the entire planet exploded, sending chunks of debris hurtling through space. "Message from High Commander Rix," Officer Song reported, her voice tight. "He says that was just a fraction of the weapon's power. Earth is next unless we surrender immediately." Dr. Yoon burst onto the bridge, his usual calm demeanor shattered. "Captain, we have a serious problem. The quantum field, it's destabilizing. We can't maintain it much longer." He pulled up the data on the main screen. The power consumption graphs were climbing at an alarming rate, while the space-time distortions around the ship had grown large enough to be visible to the naked eye. "How long?" Captain Lee asked, her voice steady despite the news. "Hours, maybe less if we have to defend against their planet killer weapon. The field is fighting against the natural laws of physics, and physics is starting to fight back." The tactical display showed the Rukar fleet moving into position around Earth. Their planet killer weapon was already beginning to charge again, its energy readings off the scale. Officer Song's console lit up again. "More intercepted communications, Captain. They're arguing about whether to fire. Some of their ships are breaking formation. They're scared that if they destroy Earth, we'll become even more dangerous." Captain Lee stood from her command chair, studying the tactical display. They had two choices: stay in defensive position around Earth and hope the quantum field held, or take the fight to the enemy while they still could. "Dr. Yoon, if we divert all power to weapons and engines, how long could we maintain the field?" "Maybe 30 minutes at full strength. Less if we take heavy fire." The bridge fell silent. 30 minutes to save humanity. 30 minutes to make the Rukar Empire regret ever threatening Earth. "Show me the enemy fleet formation," Captain Lee ordered. The tactical display zoomed out, showing the positions of thousands of Rukar ships. But there, in the center, was their weakness: High Commander Rix's dreadnought, surrounded by its escort ships. "They're afraid of us," Captain Lee said softly. "Let's give them a reason to be. Plot a course directly for their command ship." The navigation officer looked up in surprise. "Straight through their fleet." "But Captain, they think we're something beyond their understanding," she said. "So let's be beyond their understanding. Maximum thrust. Take us right down their throat." The Invictus's engines roared to life. Around the ship, the space-time distortions created by the quantum field began to twist and ripple, creating visual effects that made the ship appear to be in multiple places at once. "Incoming fire," the tactical officer shouted. The Rukar fleet had opened up with everything they had. Energy beams, plasma bolts, and exotic weapons filled space around them. But the quantum field held, even as the power readings climbed higher and higher. The Invictus plowed through the barrage like a ghost ship, untouchable and unstoppable. 15 minutes of field strength remaining, Dr. Yoon reported grimly. Officer Song's console lit up again. "They're panicking. More ships are breaking formation. Some are jumping to FTL." The dreadnought loomed larger in their view, its planet killer weapon still charging. High Commander Rix's voice boomed through their speakers. "What are you? What manner of demons have we awakened?" Captain Lee's response was calm and measured. "We are humanity. We are what happens when you push us too far. And you're about to learn why that was a mistake. 10 minutes of field strength remaining, Dr. Yoon called out. The Invictus continued its charge, straight toward the heart of the Rukar fleet. Behind them, a wave of alien ships flood in terror. Before them lay their target, and perhaps humanity's only chance for survival. Captain Lee gripped her command chair as she gave her next order. All power to engines. Let's show them what humanity can really do. The quantum-locked battleship accelerated toward its destiny, carrying with it the hopes and fears of an entire species. They had minutes left to save Earth, to defeat an empire, and to prove that humanity deserved its place among the stars. And in the darkness of space, as reality itself seemed to bend around them, the crew of the Invictus prepared to make their final stand. The breaking point had come. Now it was time to see who would break first. Time seemed to slow down as Navigator Kang Do-hyun's fingers danced across his console. The space-time distortions that had been a problem were about to become their greatest weapon. As he studied the swirling patterns of bent reality around the Invictus, an impossible idea formed in his mind. "Captain," he called out, his voice tight with excitement. "The quantum field isn't just blocking their weapons, it's creating holes in space-time. If we time this right, we could use these distortions to move in ways they can't predict." Captain Lee leaned forward in her chair. "Explain." "The field is bending reality around us. If we match our engine pulses to these distortions," he paused, double-checking his calculations, "we could essentially skip through space like a stone across water." Dr. Yoon looked up from his station, his eyes wide. "That's brilliant. The distortions would act as temporary wormholes. We'd appear to be everywhere and nowhere at once." 7 minutes of field strength remaining, Engineer Choi reminded them. Captain Lee made her decision instantly. "Do it. Give Navigator Kang full control of the engines. Everyone else, prepare for extreme maneuvers." The Invictus's engines pulsed in perfect sync with the quantum field's distortions. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then reality itself appeared to hiccup. The massive human ship vanished from in front of the Rukar dreadnought, only to reappear simultaneously in 3 different locations. The alien fleet's targeting systems went haywire, unable to determine which image was real, or if any of them were. "It's working," Navigator Kang shouted, his hands flying over the controls. "The distortions are multiplying. Each jump creates new ripples we can use." Communications Officer Song's console lit up with frantic alien transmissions. "The Rukar ships are in chaos. They can't track us. Some of their automated targeting systems are shutting down completely." The Invictus danced through space like a ghost, appearing and disappearing faster than the eye could follow. Each quantum jump created new distortions, which they used to make more jumps, creating an ever-expanding web of impossible movements. 5 minutes of field strength, Engineer Choi reported. But they weren't alone in space anymore. Other ships had appeared at the edges of the battle, vessels of different designs, from different alien civilizations. The observers who had been waiting to see how this conflict would end. Officer Song intercepted their transmissions too. "The other species, they're withdrawing their support from the Rukar Empire. They're saying any civilization that could create our technology is too dangerous to provoke." The Rukar fleet's formation had completely broken down. Ships fired blindly at Invictus's phantom images, sometimes hitting their own vessels in the confusion. Their perfect military discipline had shattered in the face of something they couldn't understand. 3 minutes of field strength. Navigator Kang's face was covered in sweat as he coordinated each precise jump. "Captain, we're directly above their dreadnought. Their point defense systems can't track us through the distortions." "The planet killer weapon," Captain Lee said. "Can you get us close enough?" He nodded grimly. "One last jump, but it'll drain most of our remaining power." 2 minutes of field strength. Captain Lee stood from her chair. "All power to weapons. Target their main weapon array. Let's show them why you don't threaten Earth." The Invictus made its final quantum jump, appearing directly in front of the dreadnought's massive planet killer weapon. For a brief moment, as their quantum field interacted with the weapon's charging energy, reality itself seemed to hold its breath. Fire everything. The human ship's weapons blazed, their shots passing through their own quantum field to strike the dreadnought's vulnerable weapon array. The resulting explosion lit up space like a new sun. 1 minute of field strength. But they didn't need it anymore. The dreadnought's main weapon was destroyed, and with it, the Rukar's last hope of victory. Across the battlefield, alien ships were jumping to FTL, fleeing from the impossible human vessel that had changed the rules of space warfare forever. High Commander Rix's final transmission was filled with something humans had never heard in a Rukar voice before, respect tinged with fear. You have done the impossible. The Rukar Empire acknowledges your strength. As the quantum field finally faded, the crew of the Invictus looked out at a changed galaxy. The observers from other civilizations were sending messages of their own now, not threats or demands, but requests for diplomatic contact. Navigator Kang slumped in his chair, exhausted but proud. Did we just rewrite the laws of physics? Dr. Yoon chuckled. No, we just found a better way to work with them. Captain Lee looked at her crew. Tired, scared, but victorious. We did more than that. We showed the galaxy that humanity won't be bullied or conquered. We showed them that sometimes the impossible just takes a little human ingenuity. The Invictus turned back toward Earth, its quantum field depleted but its mission accomplished. Behind them, the remnants of the Rukar fleet retreated into deep space, and the gathered observers began sending messages to their homeworlds. The word would spread quickly through the galaxy. Humanity had arrived on the galactic stage, and they had brought with them wonders that defied understanding. The age of human isolation was over. The age of human innovation had begun. The massive red giant star of the Rukar home system cast a crimson glow across the Invictus's hull as it took up position between the alien fleet and their homeworld. After weeks of careful power management and repairs, the quantum field hummed with renewed strength, creating a barrier that no weapon could penetrate. Captain Lee stood at the bridge's viewing window, watching the Rukar ships gather. This time, they weren't facing a hostile fleet. They were protecting one. Behind them lay the Rukar homeworld, its cities gleaming under its red sun. Before them, the remnants of the once mighty Rukar fleet waited in formation, unsure how to handle an enemy that chose mercy over vengeance. Message from High Commander Rix, Officer Song announced. He's requesting permission to come aboard. Alone. The request surprised everyone on the bridge. No Rukar leader had ever willingly placed themselves in an enemy's power before. It was a gesture that spoke volumes about how much things had changed. Grant permission, Captain Lee said. Prepare the conference room. When High Commander Rix stepped onto the Invictus, he seemed smaller somehow. The arrogance was gone from his bearing, replaced by something that looked almost like curiosity. Captain Lee met him in the conference room, where the viewport offered a clear view of both their fleets and the Rukar homeworld. You could destroy us all, Rix said without preamble. Your ship is positioned perfectly. One salvo at our planet's defense grid, and we would be helpless. Yes, Captain Lee agreed simply. We could. Then why don't you? We showed no mercy to other species. We would have shown none to Earth. Captain Lee turned to look out at the red giant star. Because that's not who we are. Humanity has learned through bitter experience that power without wisdom leads only to destruction. We didn't come here to destroy your civilization. We came to protect ours, and now yours. Engineer Choi's voice came over the intercom. Captain, quantum field is stable. We can maintain this position indefinitely. The message wasn't just for Captain Lee. It was for Rix as well. The Invictus could stand guard over the Rukar homeworld for as long as needed, an immovable guardian that no force in the galaxy could budge. Your technology, Rix said slowly, it defies everything we thought we knew about physics. But it's not just the technology, is it? It's how you choose to use it. Power is neutral, Captain Lee replied. It's the choices we make that define us. Earth extends its hand in peace, Commander. Will you take it? The peace treaty was drafted over the next few hours. Dr. Yoon worked with Rukar scientists, sharing some of the principles behind the quantum lock technology. Engineer Choi helped design safety protocols to prevent its misuse, and Captain Lee and High Commander Rix worked out the terms that would reshape the relationship between their species. As the final document was signed, Officer Song made an announcement that brought tears to many eyes. Message from Earth, Captain. They're receiving similar peace overtures from 12 other species, all the civilizations the Rukar Empire once conquered. They want to form a new alliance, with Earth and the reformed Rukar Empire as founding members. The crew gathered on the bridge to watch the signing ceremony. Where once there had been only fear and hostility, now there was hope. The Invictus had become more than just a warship. It was a bridge between civilizations, a symbol of what was possible when power was tempered with wisdom. Lieutenant Choi Youngmai sat at her engineering station, recording the historic moment in her personal log. We came prepared for war, but won peace instead. Perhaps that's the greatest victory of all. As the Invictus finally turned toward home, its quantum field shimmering in the light of the red giant, Captain Lee looked at her crew with pride. They had faced the impossible and emerged not just victorious, but transformed. They had proven that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in its technology or its weapons, but in its capacity for mercy. Dr. Yoon was already talking excitedly about the scientific exchange programs they'd established. Navigator Kang was teaching Rukar pilots about the principles behind their revolutionary space-time maneuvers, and Officer Song was busy coordinating communications between a dozen species that were learning to trust each other for the first time. The quantum-locked battleship headed back to Earth, carrying with it not just a peace treaty, but a new vision for the galaxy. They had changed the course of history not through superior firepower, but through the courage to show mercy when victory was certain. As they jumped to FTL, Captain Lee made one final entry in the ship's log. The true measure of power isn't in what you can destroy, but in what you choose to protect. Today, humanity chose to protect not just ourselves, but those who would have destroyed us. In doing so, we found not just peace, but purpose. The stars are no longer filled with enemies, but with potential friends. And that makes all the difference. The Invictus disappeared into the depths of space, leaving behind a galaxy forever changed by a single ship that dared to turn an ultimate weapon into an instrument of peace.